of the Concord Lake Forest Watershed District to order. And the first item is to call the roll.
All right, Manager Schmaltz,
Present.
Manager Baki,
I'm here.
Manager Taves,
Here.
Manager Shopmiller,
Here.
and President Anderson.
Here. Next item, we have a new member. He just introduced himself, and he has to take the official oath of office. Normally, our attorney does that. Mike, is he going to
Yes, it's
do that
Mr.
as well?
Holden.
Okay. Mr. Holtman. Would you please?
Not
deliver the-
joined the meeting yet, but
Yeah.
I've got 6:29 on the clock. He might be joining shortly.
Oh, you have to-
Oh, well, mine says 6:30, so, and that says 6:30. That's what I look at, the official clock. Okay, well, let's just go then to setting of meeting agenda, and we'll come back to you as soon as Chuck is on board. The only thing that I wanted to talk about is under 8A new business. And instead of assigning a new member on the first day that they're here, I thought it would be better if we push this to a future meeting. Our official one in the statute is January, but we can do it sooner than that. But it gives you time to talk with each member that, and we all have duties to do.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you get a better idea of what it is, and you can weigh that against your personal interest and time available.
Great.
Okay. So if that's okay, with the rest of the board, we'll do that. Thank you. That was a automatic consensus vote, so, yes.
Madam President, managers, I'd like to request that we add just a short discussion on the Lasar Stamps Out the Heritage Fund. The district had submitted a application last May. I attended the hearing yesterday at the Capitol. They were making the final deliberations on it, and I'm happy to report that both of our proposals were funded. Roughly another additional $2.5 million will be added to the.
You just say a little louder?
We'll be bringing in, and this is the Bone Lake South Phase 2 and the Greenbelt Phase 1. So just,
I thought under 10A, or. That's where it is on the website.
okay, just leave it under, okay.
Yeah,
Under, the staff.
yeah, it's added. Tori on the spot, of course, as soon as we heard that, added it there, so that's appropriate. I think that's where it belongs. It's when your administrator report we talked about as well. And just to clarify, Mike, were those actually approved? Or is it kicked into one of their other meetings before the end of the year?
This is the committee's final recommendation on the
Wonderful,
Board of the Legislature, so.
Great.
Historically, they don't make adjustments from there.
yeah, wonderful news. Well, thank you for that. It's very much appreciated.
It's been a long time coming, President
Yes,
Anderson.
oh, yes, yes. Yep, I watched Mike, I was gonna go down in person, but I watched him on the video as he was making the presentation, so. It surprised both of us how many requests were being made by agencies. Particularly ones with DNR and Bowser. Big requests then, so that was interesting. All right, the next item is
You
public.
have to approve it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Tori. We don't have a motion yet to accept the agenda, so. May I have one?
I will make a motion to accept the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's Manager Baki and Manager Lowe. Taves, excuse me. I just wrote him a message.
Game young.
Yeah. All right, roll call, please.
All right, Manager Schmaltz,
Here.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
Manager Shopmiller,
Hi,
President Anderson.
Aye. Okay, the agenda's been accepted. Let's move on.
Chuck is announced. I want to go back.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I don't see that on my calendar. Our attorney is present And so we'd like to deliver the oath of office.
Madam Chair, I am present. I apologize. I don't know why my camera is not working.
Uh-oh.
But as long as you can hear me.
We can hear you.
We can proceed. Thank you. Mr. Schottmuller, if you would raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, Jim Schottmuller,
I, Jim Schottmuller,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear.
that I will
affirm
that I will support the constitutions of the United States and the state of Minnesota,
that I will support the constitutions of the United States and the state of Minnesota,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
the office of manager
of the office of manager
of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District
of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you. Congratulations.
So let me go.
Yeah, congratulations
Thank you.
and welcome. Next is the advisory committee, excuse me. Pardon me,
Consent agenda?
consent agenda. Oh, yes, no, I'm not there yet, though.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't do the public open forum. We have people,
That's number 6, we're on number 4.
oh, sorry. Computer was down a little bit too far. All right, so we need the consent agenda approved. And again, these can all be done together. If there are no comments or changes requested, then a motion to accept the consent agenda is in order.
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as listed.
Thank you. Manager, that was Manager Schmalz. Second, please.
I will second that motion.
Manager Baki, thank you. Roll call, please.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
Manager Schottmuller.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Motion carries. Now, public hearing. Tonight, we're going to be giving our public information meeting to those present. We also have a special Zoom set up so that folks that don't want to come in, we don't have a lot of room here, as you can see, can follow this on the Zoom call. We also have the ability to take questions. One of the things that, and that's both in person, of course, and over the Zoom call. One thing we want to remind everyone of is that tonight is the traditional introduction to the budget, if you will. And then we have to turn in the information by the end of September to our counties, so they can work on the documents that they need. And then we will have information, specific information meetings on the budget, interactive with the public in October. One of the things we have to do is set those dates in October and November. The final budget has to be in by the 15th of December. And so we do have time to, you're looking at me, so
28th of December.
28th, okay, 28th of December. We like to do it by the 15th because we don't have meetings past that time typically. So anyway, we've got time for further conversation with the public. One of the things that happens with that budget is that you can lower it past today's date, but you can't increase it. And so all of that conversation is about lowering the budget in October and November. Okay, so with that information out there, I would like to start that public hearing. Manager Schmalz, who's serving as treasurer right now, is going to make the presentation. I think Emily Hines probably will help you.
I think Mike's gonna go first, right? Right.
Okay,
Yeah, Mike's going to present the budget and where the money's going this year. And then I'm going to address the question of why I'm 23% of this question.
After those presentations, we'll take questions from the audience. And anything that we can answer tonight, we will. But if we can't, we'll take that, do whatever research we need to do, and then have those answers ready for the October meeting. So we want you to understand that too. Okay, Mike, if you're starting.
Turn off the lights?
Well, here, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good. Turn it off, because we're gonna have all these slides up there, so can you turn it anymore?
Oh.
Oh.
That's great.
You don't need a new building.
That was, yeah, that, when we put it up, whatever, 11 years ago, it was, I think like $49, so.
Anne, can you see? I can. Okay, thank you.
Back here, open my phone. Thank you. So as stated, so kind of a two-step process here for the presentation of materials on the budget. Right now, this is the total expense is expected to be 4.4 million. And again, this is roughly 2 times, as you can see on the lower part, the revenue and loans. The on the income side would be 4.4, which is roughly 2 times the levy amount, and this has been kind of a historical pattern. The district is tried to target over the years to increase grant revenue over compared to the levy, and we've done some analysis in the past just to understand where we are in comparison to other public entities and watershed districts as a whole. Most watershed districts year in and year out are looking to probably take in less than 10% of their overall budget in terms of grant dollars. That's for the district here. We recognize that we are rich in water resources in terms of land area, number of lakes, etc. We've done a lot of comparison within Washington County and the metro as a whole. However, then it means we have a lot less tax capacity because of the ability to actually place structures on the landscape. So, given the number of named lakes in the district, etc. So that's one thing to note. Next, please. So just kind of the timeline, we're roughly in the middle of that. We start the budget process typically in April. We provide a schedule to the board, and these are all public. And then we've had some, I think 5 or 6 meetings with the board on various details. And then getting into August, we need to put a public notice in the paper running 2 consecutive weeks. Announcing the date of the hearing, and then if President Anderson is noted, and then necessity to certify a levy by the end of September for the truth and taxation legislation requirements. So, and there's another requirement in December to have another public comment on the budget itself. So we always announce that as well. This year, depending on number of factors, we're looking to have at least one other additional discussion with on the topic, in part because we have a brand new manager and to get him up to speed and then answer any additional questions. So, all right. Thank you, Nick. So this kind of gives you a general trend line of just the district in terms of its levy, fund balance, and anticipated expenditures. that spike on the expenditures was tied to a grant that we received for a large wetland acquisition, a property acquisition south of Bull Lake. And now we have the phase 2 for doing the restoration and reclamation work out there, so forward to that. Next, please. This is the current tax impact for homes both in Washington County and Scioto County. Those are the current 2025 median home values and the current district impact on each of those average home values. The Washington County one I'll note is particularly complex. Whatever levy increase the district levies upon property within Washington County. One property may see an 11% increase, and another one may see 1 or 2% negative increase. And we've talked and you're more than welcome to call the county person that's in charge of the taxation office, and they will readily communicate the same thing, because when we've done just surveys of the board members themselves, that is the pattern, and we see that. But they attributed to a very complex tax system within the state of Minnesota as a whole. But those are current average numbers.
Is that, where do we get that information from? That's from the county, correct?
Correct, that's,
Okay.
that information is from,
Not our information, it's their.
correct, they provide the same. Like those. Some of the accomplishments, kind of just giving a little bit of history, from standpoint that. We know that, show a slide here, the next one that through some, core sampling work, because there was some questions earlier on about whether our targets or goals for the district were, appropriate at times, because some of them seemed rather aggressive in terms of the amount of improvements that we wanted. So we did some core sampling, so we know what the pre-development conditions were for lakes prior to European settlement. And for roughly about 150 years or so, water quality was impacted negatively. Really unknown to the population at the time through logging, clearing, ditching, farming, development, just construction of anything, whether roads, public infrastructure. There was no, the district only started having a permit program in 2009, where we started requiring holding the erosion sediment control, or having the erosion sediment control practices in place. And for those of us that were around and witnessed some of those things in the years prior, we could witness truckloads of sediment entering into a water body in one site within a couple of days after a storm event. So big impacts, and it's all documented through the core in many ways. So then we proceeded at the beginning of the district commenced in 1889, in part because of these negative impacts, well, not in part, but because of these negative impacts that were being seen, and the limited water quality monitoring data at the time was showing very, very, very poor water quality across many lakes in the district. And so in 2010, the district then started a 6 lakes maximum of the TMDL, otherwise known as total maximum daily load. And that was a framework created by the EPA, in which they're trying to look at any water body and say, what could any water body handle from a daily maximum load and still sustain relatively good water quality? So that was adopted in 2010. Sunrise River petition, for then just 2 years after, district underwent several years of intense monitoring data and collection. And then we started really in earnest in 2013 in terms of the implementation of capital projects. So we were aggressive in our nature, going after a lot of clean water competitive grants. And we'll show you how we fared across the larger community with that, or of public entities. And the result has been then something almost quite surprising by many in the water resources field. When I started working in this and under the TMDL framework in the early 2000s, it was widely assumed that all impaired waters were gonna take 50 to 75 years or longer to be to recover, because it took that many years or more to be impaired. So Bone Lake was the first one. We have Comfort Lake slated for delisting in 2026. And then if we continue with some of the other trends that we see in other water bodies, we'll see another 2 or 3 in the following cycle of rotation after that, 2028. So every other year. Okay, thank you. Next one, please. So I mentioned, so we did these cores on the lakes, so this is a trend that we've seen in many of them. Just in terms of the sediment accumulation, which is tied to then nutrient loading as well, relatively low amounts, and then these larger spikes. And then Forest Lake in particular, you can see that around 1980 or so, then we started seeing, first it was most likely logging, farming, ditching, commercial, residential, but then on the lakeshore development, the near shore, in the 1980 or so, then probably is the more recent uptick in terms of sediment rate, as well as other impacts in the near shore area. Next, please. So we are a data-driven organization. We talked about that. This particular location around Bone Lake, we did a side-by-side sub-watershed analysis using computer models, and then one using actual monitoring data to see how the two methodologies compared. The monitoring data picked up some of these hot spots, and which, if you understand the Pareto principle, we're using Lean Six Sigma. A lot of industry businesses, et cetera, use these to try to understand how to be the most effective. You're trying to get to that 80–90% reduction with just a limited number of impacts. So this is then what the result. We've been able to do 2, 3, maybe 4 projects and get these very large reductions within each of these drainage areas. And so again, by having these actual numbers and being one of the few entities that could put those forth during the grant application cycles, we were able to receive this kind of this continuum of additional grants, but it's very effective in addressing or identifying and then addressing the issues at hand. Next, please. So one of the things that we focus on again, so the board as a whole has come from a business background, and that was my experience too. I was involved with doing Lean Six Sigma work, process improvement, and started as a business major, and so we aligned well in our approach in this, and so there's a big difference in terms of looking at projects that have a high benefit for a lower cost per pound or unit, so the capital cost. So we've been focusing in that lower range, under $200 a pound, and so that is very different than if we have examples of recommendation of projects that we could have done, very small outputs, very high cost per pound, often $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 a pound. And you can see the difference in the total cost of what it would have taken to achieve the same results. Next, please. So this then would be the difference across the Lower St. Croix, where we are a member of the Lower St. Croix one watershed, one plan, and we have been pushing for them to adopt the same framework, or from that standpoint, just because of the huge cost impact to the taxpayer as a whole. Next, please. And then if we were to scale that out across the state of Minnesota, looking at all the historical impacts, and this is where we've really sort of our bread and butter with that diagnostic work has been identifying legacy loads of agriculture sites, typically that are no longer active, but the nutrients are there in the wetland, discharging ongoing into downstream water bodies. Next, please. So this is kind of the overall trend line for Bone Lake. Next, please. Comfort Lake. And next, please. And Forest Lake. Next, please. So. And again, so overall, we see just this improving or significantly improving. Condition under all these major lakes. The only where it's declining is the second depth. Just reading, for Forest Lake, both middle and east basins, so, but we anticipate that with the algae treatment again this fall. We'll continue to see improvements. Next, please. So budget highlights, here's some of the grants that we currently have secured that are, underway or in for both 2025 and 2026. These are often location or activities that we are wanting to work on, and then we can match either with some staff time or are able to get some staff time covered for each of these different areas. Obviously, the shoreline piece is a big one that we're looking to continue to work on and expand over time. Next, please. Current funds secured for projects, Heath Avenue, this is another iron hand sand filter project. Design is where we are, 60-90%. Yeah, so, and so we're looking for construction for next year. Again, mostly that $1.9 million grant from Clean Water Fund was the largest single grant that Bowser has ever provided for an entity for this particular project. We have another one at School Lake. We're a landowner that we've been working with and making progress there. Next, please. Another good one, Avenue Stormwater Project. This is up in Wyoming. Bone Lake South Habitat Restoration, just discussed that briefly, that we secured those grants. We anticipate them, they were approved and included within the overall budget recommendation for 2026. They'll be effective again, starting July 1st. Thanks, please. And as a sort of a summation of the from fiscal year 2014 to 2025, district has continued to be number one of all the whatever 40, 50 plus different entities that are applying for grants through the Clean Water Fund year in and year out for that total amount. This does not include the funds that we worked on and helped secure for the street sweeper for the city of Forest Lake, as well as the stormwater work and the reuse over that's at the high school. We just recognize that half of those students are residents of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, so we helped with that one as well. Next, please. Future grant seeking. If all this was to come into play or fruition, this would be some of these are, well, most of these tend to be multi-year grants. The Greenbelt, we just would we have 1.27 coming in on that one now. But some of these other ones under the public outreach and shoreline initiatives, ag practice, etc. One of those we're putting in for 2.3 million. But if we were to total all these requests, we would estimate the ask for in the next year would be roughly $12 million of grants that we're going to be seeking. Next, please. Other revenue sources, so under the permit fees, we get partnership dollars for our AIS program, as well as some money through our bank interest under our current funds on hand. Next, please. So it's really kind of a mixture of overall features of watershed protection and climate resiliency, looking at doing a variety of activity here, and that will hope to be covered by many of those grants that we are looking to seek. So, okay, think that's it for me.
Isn't flip Steve's presentation now?
Excuse me?
I'm gonna flip your presentation.
Yeah, that's fine. Good evening, everyone. Good to see all the friendly faces out for this. So, it's not because this presentation is, I gotta change glasses here, okay. Is why a 20 or 23% levy increase, and this is kind of the questions we've been getting from everyone. And I think that, it's broader than that, though. I think we're gonna be discussing a levy increase, but I think I'm gonna cover and look back in terms of, the fact that this is only one of 26 levy increases we've had. So we've been at this for a long number of years, and like any organization or any business, you're gonna have ups and downs, and I don't think that a 20 or 23% levy increase implies that the sky is falling upon us and so forth. So, I'm trying to take a broader view of this and trying to look at what the value has been contributed. So really what I'd like us to look at and keep a broader mind on this, and that would be to look at the original challenge that we faced. Mike talked a little bit about some of the issues we had to face, but I'll give you some numbers of what that exact challenge was and how that converts into the dollars and what we have to get done. And then I think we should also consider looking back over these 26 years, what progress has been made in creating value for all the tax dollars that we spent. What have you all received back from what's been spent? That's the way I look at my tax returns when I have to pay that money. What am I getting for this? Sometimes you feel happy, sometimes you don't. So I think you need to look at that and make that judgment and see whether this 23% request that we're looking for means the skies are falling, or is it just another number that we've had it's not the first 23% increase we've had. We've had several of those. Probably won't be the last, because we're reacting to the situation and things change over time. So the challenge that the watershed faced in around 2000 was set up by a group of citizen petitions to the state. And that was a result of a lawsuit from Chisago County against the city of Forest Lake for the impairment of Comfort, right? Comfort
It was the Comfort Lake Association,
Lake Association, okay.
actually.
But as I understand it, it was a clear lake, and within 2 years after the big box and the Broadway area developed, there was no stormwater control on that, and within 2 years, that lake was impaired. So they sued to get it reclaimed, and so that's what how this whole thing started. And we have the support of the state, we have the support of the citizen petitions, and we have an obligation to restore those lakes. So the situation we found ourselves in around 2010, after the TMDL study was done, is that 6 of the 9 lakes in the watershed district were impaired. And Forest Lake, the biggest and the most important, and the most widely used lake in Washington County, was only 5% away at the phosphorus level of being impaired. So we were bumping up against being impaired, and those that moved here in early 2000, we came up here in 2002. We had 3 or 4 blue algae issues all the time. The lake would turn green with an algae bloom for several days or maybe even a week. Often the public beach was closed because of algae, etc. So it was not a good place, and reflects that we were within 5% of being impaired. So that we were looking to strive to fix that also. So the TMDL that Mike talked about is an engineering study that says how much phosphorus has to be taken out of these 6 lakes to restore the lakes. And that number came out to be around 4,600 pounds of phosphorus to restore the impaired lakes. At that time, in around 2010, the cost of phosphorus reduction using conventional techniques, which are basically desktop analysis, and then looking at BMPs that only have a short life, maybe 10 years, was $2,000 a pound. But more importantly, the size of the project that come out of that kind of analysis ranged between 1 and 10 pounds. So if you look at that and you take 4,600 pounds and you multiply by 2,000 pounds, you end up with a spending target of 92 million to take those 4,600 pounds out. At the same time, at 1 to 9 pounds per project, you need over 400 projects to accomplish that. So that works out basically for the time it takes to do a small project, something like between 50 and 60 years. So that was what we were assigned. That was it. How would you like to get that assignment from your boss? It's a pretty tough situation. So the The strategy we put in place then was to be as cost efficient with the taxpayer dollars as we possibly could. When I came onto the board, I had to interview the board as Jim did, and Fran Mirren gave me the old taxpayer talk about saying, whatever you do, be careful with the taxpayers' dollars, and we've been operating that way for most of the years we've been here. The second strategy was to find a more effective phosphorus reduction strategy than the ones that were conventionally available, so we could do bigger projects and faster. And then we wanted to restore the lakes within people's lifetime here now, so they can enjoy the lake without waiting about 40 or 50 years to be able to do it. So we wanted to accelerate our success and have the lakes restored a lot sooner than a lot later. So that was kind of the challenge. So the first chart I'd like to show you is basically a chart. If you go to the next one, thank you. So basically a chart of our revenue recap. And what I'm trying to communicate here is basically three things. One is the sources of our revenue each year. Secondly, the relative importance of each revenue piece to the total. And then finally, the importance of water quality improvement projects and land acquisition that has on not only the size of the budget, but the variability of the budget from year to year. So if you look at the top box in the middle, you can see that the 2026 revenue forecast, as Mike mentioned, was 4.4 million. And if you go to the revenue sources, the number one on the top line is tax revenue at 2.2 million, and that represents 50% of our revenue for the year. The next is grant revenue at almost 8 million, and that this year represents about 40%, and it runs in and around that many years. So the third, I want to point out here that, as Mike mentioned, this is a very significant number. It provides a lot of value to the taxpayer. So the taxpayer is really only paying 50% of the cost of this. The rest is from grants. Grants are taxpayer dollars, but at the state level, and if we don't take it, somebody else is going to take it. So we try to get as much of that as we possibly can to have a better value for the taxpayer. That's where that 92 million came from, assuming we had to pay it with the whole levy. So the third revenue source is 180,000, which is only about 4%. That stays pretty common. The dollars aren't so much important here. This comes from our lake associations, from the county, the city, many of our partners. And this indicates that we've got a lot of support from outside the public itself in working to get this problem solved. And that helps us get grants. Another reason we've been successful with grants is because we have a strong partner organization that we can work with. And then the final one is loans at 234,000, and that's 6%. And it turns out that loans are going to be a very important part of our financing strategy here. And I'll get into that in a second. But by the way, we hope this will be the last loan we take, but we'll wait and see. So the other thing I want to talk about is the importance of water quality projects and land acquisition. If you look at the bottom box, we've got the revenue from 2025 and 2024. You can see and we were at 4.4 for this year. Last year, we were at 5.3 million dollars higher. 60% of that revenue went to projects, which were at 3.2 million. You can see that on the right-hand side of the box. The year before that, our total spending was only 3.1 because we had fewer projects, 25 projects or about 800,000. So you can see, and this year, by the way, it's about 47 or 50% of that 4.4. It's a little bit over 2 million. So what's driving this whole thing in terms of the variability and the dollars we need each year is all the major water quality projects that we have to do and the land acquisition that goes with it. So we really started water quality projects in 2013. That was the first year we started. And the strategy at that time was to fund the reserve from past revenues. And we had been building up revenues in previous years, so we had a fund to work with. That went well for till about 2019, and then the reserve started to dwindle. And we had a decision to make. We're going to try to cover these costs with a higher levy charges, or can we switch to a zero cost loans that were available at that time? And we decided to go the zero cost loan route and not continue with higher levy charges. So, And that spreads the cost over 7 to 10 years on the taxpayers' part, not trying to pay for it up and down as we go forward on it. That lasted until about this year, 2026. We're starting to wind down finally, and that's why the loan is dropping off. But this year, the past ones have been higher than expected, and we'll get into why that is. We ran into some issues, and I want to cover those with you in a second. So I think this will be clearer to you if we look at the loan, at the levy history, and also the levy dollar history. So if we could go to that next chart, or so we're only going to look at part of this chart, but let me get my other glasses. Well, here. So concentrate on the yellow column. That's our percent increases since 2013. And at the bottom, it averages to be about 7.7%. On the far left side, that column is estimated market value, your home values. And you can see that's been growing also. So if you do the two ratios, that ratio comes out into the column to the right of the yellow column. And you can see that column has varied from 0.05 to 0.07%, but averages about 0.06%. So it stayed, even though our levy has gone from 755,000 to 2.3 million this year, that ratio has stayed pretty much the same, which says that we're not overtaxing market value that's growing. We're growing the same or a little bit less in market value. So we're showing some responsibility and value there by staying within those guidelines and still getting a lot of work done. So to go back a little bit further on this, this only goes to 2013, but in between 2000 and 2009, our average levy was about $200,000 a year, because we were in the information gathering stages, learning what the problems were, where the issues were, et cetera. So we averaged about 200,000 a year. 2009, we raised the levy 250% to 750,000, with the intent that we would start in 3 or 4 years doing projects, and we had to build up some fund to spend the money. They have money to spend. So that's shown here at the top of the chart, 212, 213. Now you're starting to see the 755,000 building up that we did each year. We had 0% increases in those years. Probably a mistake, but we thought we could build a pretty good pot of money. So, and then we were going to draw from that. And as we start doing the projects, by the time we got to 2016, we found out that our reserve was starting to go down. So we started raising the levy again, 6%. We needed more money. We did 20%, 24%, and then we did 20%. After that, we said, hey, we can't keep doing this. This is not a good way to go. We're putting the burden on the taxpayer each year. What we should do is spreading it out over the 5 or 6 years that we expect to do projects. So in that year, in 2019, then we implemented the zero loan concept. And we started taking loans to handle the variability in the projects. Along with the strategy was to do that, along with slightly above average inflation levy increases, so we could still kind of manage it that way. Things were going well until we had some issues after COVID, which I'll discuss in the next chart. So we ended up in 2026 where our reserve again was too low. And we were also had some loans to pay off, right? So basically we have to get this 23.7% to get a couple 400,000 a year for several years to get those loans back in line. So again, you see the levy goes up and down, but in essence, we've been managing it pretty fairly across the 26 years. So what went wrong? Let's look at what went wrong. And this is kind of a short summary, but it's the major points. I'll let Tori, if you could go to the next one. The first one occurred in about 2021 with COVID. A lot of inflationary pressures. We all lived through this. You know, our staff wanted more money. Other people wanted more money. Labor costs went up. Material costs went up. So that was an issue that we hadn't anticipated and hit us pretty hard because we weren't raising the levy fast enough. The next one was a surprise and a disappointment for us. Was a significant cost overrun on a major Sunrise River wetland enhancement project. This is that big wetland enhancement off of Highway 8 before you go into Wyoming. Great project. But when we got the original idea and we did the cost estimate was 600,000, we got a grant for that. But then we couldn't work out property deals with people that owned the property. Person died, and then we had issues with getting it worked out, and it took 3 years before we finally got it worked out with a number of other issues. And by then, the cost had skyrocketed, it's because of inflation and everything else, and we were up 1.6 million. Fortunately, our staff, we have crack staff here, especially on getting grants and a very good engineering firm with EOR, and putting the grants together and having the data and the rationale for it. We're able to find another 300,000 grants, so we had 900,000 against 1.6, but we ended up, as you can see there, spending $700,000 in loans, or basically could have been levy money, so that was a big hit to us. The third thing, and Manager Anderson's gonna love this because she pushed for more aggressive increases and the board decided not to. And so these were the increases we had, and looking back, we should have taken a little bit higher increases, so we didn't have to go to 20 or 23%. So the summary of the situation is that the loans have been spent already, over $4 million of water quality improvement job projects. The projects are mostly completed and well below, as you'll see, expected costs overall. The public benefit from clean water is now. People have been enjoying this. They've been driving this brand new car. They're using these lakes again. Now, and then we have to wait another 15 or 20 years to see it. So we've been able to move this forward, which is one of the objectives we had. Okay, the bad news is the loans have to be repaid, and we need to get a good jump on it in the next 2 or 3 years, and that's why we need the 20.3. Now, this is not the best news, but we also need to consider the burden on the taxpayer. And what value did the public receive for the taxpayer costs that we've invested over the last 26 years? So next slide, Tori. Mike showed you this chart already. It shows that in 2025, the levy was 20, or the cost was $20 to $249. That's based upon what county you're in. The levy cost for this year will be somewhere between 20 and 23.7, or $244 to $252, which is an extra $44 or $52 for Washington County and 47 to 57 for Chisago County. Considering that we've been raising the levy for 26 years, I don't think that's too bad of a number, but you know, every situation is different. I'm sure some people are not gonna like to look at a $44 or $50 increase, depending on their own personal situations. But that's kind of where we are, and so that's kind of what the impact is. Certainly a lot less in the city, which is gonna raise 9% on millions of dollars, in the county, which is gonna raise close to that on how many millions does the county handle. So when you look at your tax statement, this is a smaller amount compared to other payments you have to make. So let's look at the value we've created. If we go to the next chart, this looks at the district water quality improvement results through 2025. And as I said, we said before, and Mike mentioned, we've taken 4,600 pounds of phosphorus removed at an average cost of $200. Actually, it's 168, but we've got other projects to do. It's probably going to be around 200 because we're doing more expensive projects. We've got the cream off the top, and now we have to dig a little deeper and pay a little bit more. So compare $200 to $2,000. There's an $1,800 times the 4,600 pounds that we've taken out at the lower amount. That's worth $8.2 million in value that we've created, that we didn't have to use levies for. So pretty good return on the investment for $200 a year for 26 years. We've also leveraged $12.3 million in grants, as Mike talked about, for additional public savings, and we're number one in grants, mainly because of our excellent staff and because EOR is very good at and because we worked on larger projects is the main reason, and we have good people to get the grants. Skipping down to number D. So right now, we're 95% towards state water quality standards for all 6 impaired district lakes. And Forest Lake wasn't impaired, but the water quality has improved from 5% to 25% from state impairment. So if you remember the numbers, 40 is a bad number. If you go across 40, you're impaired. For early years in the 2000s, we were at 38. And then during the summer, we would be at 44, 42, 44 impaired. And that showed up in the algae blooms and the blue the blue of algae, et cetera. So now we're down to 30. We've taken the 38 down to 30 milligrams. So that's a 25% cushion we have now from impairment, which gives us some room to breathe. And that's gotta be worth a lot of value, especially Forest Lake owners, property owners. Number E, the lake property values increase 6% for every 3 feet of water clarity improvement. And this is good for the property owners. It's also good for the city and county tax base, because it keeps it raising and keeps it high, brings in more tax dollars. And then finally, we've established a professional organization to protect and improve water quality goals achieved and be available to address future challenges. When Mike started, what year did you start, Mike? 2014?
2014.
14. Mike was the sole employee we had. We were over in the old library, with a little cubby office. You guys may remember that. And we were there for a number of years, and we moved in this beautiful location with 3 or 4 people. Now we have 11. And that's kind of where we have to, engineering studies say we need about 10 or 11 people to run this sizable watershed and still meet state statutes with what we have to be done every year. So back then we had Mike, and then we hired Emily, and then we started building a staff. We didn't have much AIS, we didn't have any boat inspections, we didn't have any permit programs, we didn't have any permit inspections. Go down the list that Mike talked about, that's up there, we've got it in place now, we've got very good staff people to attack most challenge any challenge we have. So that's a very big positive step. What about the future? Emily, sorry, if you could do the next slide. We're gonna be trying to be a little bit more cautious or conservative here in terms of watching our costs. We've already taken out this year $295,000 of stuff that we would have liked to have done. But we felt we have to prioritize, we don't have to do as much monitoring, we've got a good monitoring base, so we cut back on some of these things, and we have a list of that you could look at if you'd like. It's a pretty good amount of money, and not enough to reduce a 20% down to a 10% levy increase. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna be even more ambitious grant seeking as we move from water quality to flood mitigation, et cetera. We have a whole new set of grants we can win, and so we're gonna try to cover all of our program costs with 20% grant costs or grant revenue for that. Project and land acquisition costs, we're gonna try to go to 100% this year. Otherwise, if we don't get 100%, we're gonna hold back on it. We still want to leverage staff experience and our staff to protect and improve water quality gains. And then the other thing we expect to happen is a repayment of majority of the loans by 2030. So the last 3 years, we repaid 22% in 3 years. With the extra 400,000, we can repay up to 79% or 80% in the next 5 years, and maybe even better if we get more grants, et cetera. So that's kind of what we expect in the future. And then the next steps, last slide. Sorry. If we need one, based upon your comments and responses, we'll set up at least one meeting in October probably, and we're gonna decide that tonight, probably, if we have time. So that we can address any questions we can't answer here tonight. We have a smaller crowd than we expected, so we probably have some time to go through some questions. So that's a lot of numbers. I'm not an accountant, but I am a numbers guy, and so I think we've always been data rich here, and we've tried to do that in making all of our decisions. So it should show up in the presentation when we get it. So thanks, everyone.
Yes. Well, now's the time. Do we have anyone online?
Yes. Can you just a second?
There are no raised hands online.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. What about in the office here? Yes.
I have a
Mr.
question.
Hanson.
We talked about, we built up our net reserve through 2018. Do we know what that amount we build it up to?
We can look that up.
Yeah, I think it was about the opposite of where we are now, Ted. It was close to like 1.8, 1.9. So
Now we're at negative
1.9.
1.8.
Yeah, so
Well, it goes down. When you do larger projects, and we had a lot of success that we didn't expect. And we weren't gonna push this off, kick the can down the road, that happens a lot on legal groups, so we wanted to get it done and get it done, and it was, we felt we could manage it, but like I say, we ran into some unforeseen issues with COVID and that project and a couple other things, and we weren't aggressive enough on the levels,
I think the other thing that's part of the, or always is part of the reserve is the 6 months in the next year. Because
we have to have that.
in government, you have to budget annually, but pay for operating expenses into the next year. Because the tax levy doesn't arrive, the first one, until around July 1st. And then the second one doesn't come until about the middle of December. So we have to have enough carryover to cover our operational costs. Which is primarily, of course, people and benefits, and then the operation of the actual facility.
You saw 236,000, whatever it was up there for the last one, hopefully, but you know, during the, when we were really doing the projects, we had a couple of years where we had $900,000, $800,000 in loans. It's been dropping off quickly now, and we're getting better at grants. Mike, go ahead.
Madam President, managers, one thing on the loan too, that in terms of a compounding factor was that when we started them, these were 10-year interest-free loans. And of course, we would all do that every day if we could do that, you know, but, and then halfway through this process, the MPCA changed their structure to make them 7-year loans at 1.5% interest. So all of a sudden, we're compressing the timeline, and these are stacking up.
Faster than we thought. Yeah.
Right, so it's rather than being spread out over a longer period of time, we now are confronted with the, you know, something again that was completely out of our control and not foreseen, is stacking these up in a shorter time frame.
We looked at taking out a bond there too. But for a small organization like us, it's a lot of selling to the public, and it's a big cost too with the interest you have to pay, and it's just easier to manage it ourselves. It just got a little away from us. Not completely away, but it got a little away from us, and I think it's still a smart move that we made to use loans rather than a bond, so.
Yes,
So you have no option of extending your bond payments for another year or two?
we don't have any bond payments.
Not bond payment, but loan payments?
Well, we could ask, but
I
it's,
think that,
it's never been done, but we have a good reputation with that agency, and, I've been told in the past, when I've talked to them directly, that they're willing to do things that they don't normally do because we've managed those loans so well. And so, so we could try. We could try to extend it out. I mean, that's what we were trying to do in the budget. You know, the iterations of the budget that we were talking to, any of the CAC members that were here about over the last several months. So we could ask.
but the payback now is like running about, we're at the high point, about 580 for 3 or 4 years, 580,000. That takes a lot out of our capability to do projects, so that's why we gotta get that loans back, bounced down, so we have money for projects again.
We did look at, it's like a mortgage when you refinance, because the interest rates are low, and then you can stretch out your payments. So, we did look at that, and we're not eligible for that type of a loan from the bank. They just do, hard projects, so buildings, projects in the ground, that kind of thing. Yes, go ahead. Can you state your name? I'm sorry, it's Randy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a number of large projects coming up. Talked about the flood resiliency, the, Homeland property that will be developed. Environmental center, there's some big projects still being done. You anticipate having to borrow money as well in the future on these projects?
Well, I think we're gonna be trying to be more ambitious on our grants. So rather than having 80% and paying 20% with the levy, we're gonna try to cover it all with grant costs. And if we don't do that, if we're a couple percent off, we probably won't, but we'll try to hold the project up until we get the grants.
Most of our money has been coming through, clean water funds. But the ones that Mike mentioned this, at the top of the meeting here, those are from, let me get this wrong, but it's the, yeah, Sam's. Yeah, sorry, Sam's. But there's an HO in there too, so, but anyway, so it's Lessard Sam's, these are bigger loans, I've seen them, up to 10 or 15 million, and they are phased, we can phase it, go ahead.
Madam President, managers, so the grants, so they're, Randy, for 2 of the items you mentioned, the property south of Bone Lake and the Greenbelt or the flood resiliency projects. Those are the two grants that we're talking about that just yesterday were approved by the committee and will go forward, so we have access to those at the middle of the year after it started the state fiscal year. So in terms of the facility, right now, you know, as much as we would like to move out of this overcrowded former hair salon, until we get some either some grants or some significant donations of some kind, which we intend to pursue, we'll just live under our means.
Or alternate, we're also examining alternate ways
Correct.
to
Yeah.
work with builders and then we wouldn't have any of that. But the big projects that we're talking about are part of our resiliency effort. And so they're all kind of under the same umbrella. They're parts of a bigger whole. And what that means is that we want to protect the low areas from flooding. We want to protect the waters, the buffers that waters have, lake, whether it's a lake or a river or a stream, from flooding also. And that way we don't have to worry about cleaning up the waters with these higher intensity precipitation events we've had. So it's all part of that master plan and again, the ceiling on the Luxard Sam type loans are much bigger. So,
Those are grants, not loans.
oh, I'm sorry, did I say loans? Grants, excuse me, thank you. Yeah, they're all grants.
Only question, you
Yes.
mentioned the benefit of living on the lake and the improved water quality. I think in Washington County, 13% of the people live on a lake and I think it's like 7% in Chisago County. What's the benefit to those homeowners that are seeing this increase that don't live on a lake?
Two answers to that question. One would be that, first of all, if you have a watershed district, it only includes people whose property flows into the lake. So you can have a cow manure X farm 10 miles away and be a really hot phosphorus thing. So that's why everybody has to participate. Second is we did some research in 2010 when we were trying to get more money out of the city from the Lake Association. And at that point in time, you know, we found the statistics you mentioned are very correct. But when you check, so the DNR creel samples, who's using the lake, they ask you where you're from in that. That showed that almost 80% of the people that use the lake don't live on the lake. Okay, and you can tell that by our boat inspections also. All these hundreds of people that come in on the weekends on that, and it's very important to recognize that fact. The other thing we did is I did a search of for boat licenses like canoes, boats, pontoons, anything that can go in the water, kayaks, right? And in ZIP 5552, which is basically Forest Lake, and it came up that 70-some% or 65% of the people had at least one license for one water vehicle thing. So again, reinforcing they don't have it for their backyard, they're gonna go to the closest lake problem. So those numbers help convince the city that they should give us more money. So hope that answers your question.
The other thing to always remember is in Minnesota, the water belongs to all of us. And so, people that have lakeshore property or river property, anything close to the water, we do have a responsibility to maintain those buffers, to respect the buffers and what they were put in place to do, which is keep pollution out of the waters. And so we do have a responsibility for that. We have the day-to-day enjoyment of the lakes too, which other folks don't have, but we're all in this together, cleaning up the water. And the thing that became very important to us, you know, I've been with the district since the start and helped form it. So there were 7 years before that, getting to know the area and the governments that we had to interact with. But one of the absolutely light reforming area was the passage of the Legacy Amendment. None of these grants would be possible without the Legacy Amendment. And that's when we could really start doing things. We were doing a lot of that data collection in those first 7 years. And just one correction, Steve, from your wonderful presentation. The boat launch monitoring actually started, it was a Chisago County program that they brought over to us because Comfort Lake is in Chisago County, so is Moody. And so they brought it to us 2 years, I think, before Mike started. And we jumped on it. It just was a good program. That was obviously inclusive of our portion of Washington County as well. So we've been doing that a long time. All of the partners at that time were very, very, very interested in having the watershed become successful. Because there was rapid urbanization of farmland in this area, and that was changing the way stormwater was coming at all of our water bodies. And adequate facilities hadn't been provided with that change to urban areas. So a lot of our problems are from these legacy loadings that we talked about that happen because of that, or because of farm fields that have been converted into urban settings. So a lot of it has to do with that stormwater. Yes.
President, just on the watercraft inspection, we know that just from the data there that we could extrapolate quite easily that there's over 10,000 watercraft just on Forest Lake alone that come in and out annually, and that drives economic impact. I know that UW Stout did one for the Red Cedar River, Lake Minoma and Tainer, you know how red those lakes are. That was about $28 million of economic impact annually. And just this summer, there was one completed down in Madison, Lake Minoma and Lake Mendota. And that was driving over $200 million of economic impact, people coming in and recreating, spending. So we would expect that Forest Lake and the surrounding lakes would be certainly higher than what you're seeing in the Red Cedar area. And it's one of my goals, not on the board's list or SMART goals, but on my own personal goals, is to try to reach out and find a university team, staff, or students to do a similar study in the district here, so.
Yeah, that's a good point too. We haven't ever done that economic benefit on a district-wide basis, but it's gotta be enormous for Forest Lake. Forest Lake has many projects, not the big ones anymore, but a lot of moderate to low-end projects that would help. But you know, you could be doing that every year. You know?
Yeah, just look at the people that come to the Tuesday night
Mhm.
during the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
That's when they're-
Yeah.
Arts in the Park. Yeah, Arts in the Park, there's just, I mean, we've had our booths up there, and there's a lot of people that come
Yeah.
during the summer. So.
Jerry, so, Jerry Grutman, I've been engaged with Washington District back in 2013, just when Mike had started, so. I have seen it all the last 12 years to 13 years now. And I've been on the Citizen Advisory Committee for over 10 years now. And, you know, I first of all want to say that, I really appreciate what the Washington District has done over all these years for the water quality. I know some of the staff personally, and you've got a great staff. That being said, I think sometimes this comes down to perception as to what's going on. And, you know, the dollar value may not be the thing that bothers me as much as the percentage increase. And I understand why. I understand all the reasoning behind why this has to be done. The bigger concern I have, however, but sitting through some of the budget meetings we've had here isn't what the levy is going to be in 2026. It's what it's going to be in 2027, what it is in 2028. That hasn't been really communicated in order to do what you want to do. But when you get there, unless you start reducing costs, is to have the same percentage increase in 27, 28. Now we're talking some substantial increases over a 3-year period. And that's the part that personally, and I think as a taxpayer, I have difficulty with a little bit. A 20 to 25% increase over 3 years. And if you can find another way to get back to where you need to be, with repaying all these loans without doing that levy, good job looking to find it, but everything we've seen, can't do it. So that personally my biggest concern, so that would then say to me, okay, maybe we need to be looking at in 2026, do we start trying to peel this back a little bit, maybe there needs to be some budget cuts yet more. Because you're gonna have the same discussion again a year from now. And another discussion year after that.
Right, but I don't see us having another 20% increase. What could happen then? We have the 20%, and that alone, if it just rides by itself, is gonna be a significant thing. That's an extra 400,000 a year. But I think we're probably gonna have some kind of normal increases during the years after. You know, it's not gonna be zero.
I thought the budgets we had looked at that you had a round numbers, 22%, 20%.
Did you try again?
14%.
No, it was 14 and it was like 9, something like that. So
14 and 9.
it's something like that. I've got it here. But again, we're buying time with this increase to see how we do. We got time yet this year to see whether other grants come in. So things can change very quickly. And it's important that we just not jump one way or we cut too much or we increase the levy too much. We need to continue a nice steady pace forward and manage the situation. On an adaptive manner, as things change, we have to change.
So if you clarify, am I correct? You said 14% increase in 27 and then 8% increase in 28?
Something like that, yeah, and by then, actually by year 3,
For 28.
Yeah, this is
What about
13,
27?
14.2 and 27.
23, 7.
It's 14.2,
Okay, all right.
14.2 and 27.
Then 13.2.
yeah, by the 3rd year, if we had those increases, we wouldn't need a levy increase at all.
Okay.
We can actually reduce the levy. But I don't think we have to do those, you know, we lose 0.5% each year because we don't get our money from the,
Like I said, I
so we built that. in.
fully appreciate what the district gets, and I just get nervous. I just get nervous with what happens. There's always a snowballing that happens, and so you try to pull back a little bit so that you have some cushion. So I just asked the board to before December 15th, that you give this some hard look, and whatever you can do to bring the budget back and bring the levy down yet this year, I would encourage that.
Yeah, most of you have heard me say this before, that are here anyway. But we are the tiniest line item on a budget state, or on a tax statement. And I figured mine out just for my own benefit, I suppose. But, the increase, the 2025 represents 4% of our total bill for taxes, the total bill. And the next year, with the 20% increase or 20.3% increase, raises it to 5%, that's all. And then in 2026, adding that increase, it goes up to 6.1. So it goes up a little bit more than 1, but it's 1 point. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind. We are the tiniest line item. My contribution, and our house is up there in value, is $314. That's what we pay for the watershed. And so when you're increasing, even by that level, as that one chart showed, this isn't the first 20% that we've done. It's about the 4th. And we've had, I think, 2 10% in that time frame, but we started from nothing. You know, this, we for the first 8 years, we were restricted to 250,000 in levy. That was the statute. We were operating under the rural statute, not the urban statute. We had to get that changed at the legislature. Washington County is part of the 5-county, the little portion of Chisago was not. So we had to get that changed by legislation, and then we could actually base the budget on what our needs were. So that's why that jump occurred so dramatically in that year, but we're not talking about those kind of dramatic changes anymore, because our budget still is in the $2 million range, and we don't want it to go too much beyond that. We don't see a need for too much beyond that, but things can change depending upon the sub watershed that you're dealing with. And the Comfort Lakes is the last one to be dealt with as a whole. We did Moody Lake, we did Bone Lake. There have been tremendous impacts on those 2 lakes, just tremendous. Moody used to be green all the time. absolutely all the time. And it's now a normal lake again, and it's beautiful, and so is Bone. So these projects work, but when you look at what's necessary for each sub-watershed, it's different. We also moved Forest Lake ahead of the Comfort Lakes because the rules changed at Bowser to encourage watersheds to start working on lakes that were almost at that danger level of being delisted. And so we did. We put Forest Lake before the Comfort Lakes, and it's a big lake. It's a big sub watershed. So it took more years to do Forest Lake than the others. But we're now at the end of that sub watershed level, working with the two comforts, and a lot of the projects that we needed have been fit in with grants that we've received. And then the other thing that we had to start doing is the floodplain and resiliency focus, because flooding was occurring with these erratic, very heavy precipitation events that we were having. So we had to start working with our community partners to get those going and in place so that we could protect buildings in those low areas. Mike, you had your hand raised?
Yes, Madam President, managers, just kind of wanna, I've often joked, but in sincerity, I mean, I've always thought it was part of my job is to put myself out of work, right? To get everything to the state where it would be sustainable through the actions of the community members and our partners, cities, counties, et cetera. So that'd be an ideal where we would have a levy and no need for a watershed district, but that doesn't exist. So even right now, so the other meeting, the area asked, when we cut AIS, that would cut about we spend about 200,000 of levy dollars on AIS. But what's the cost benefit of that, for ounce of prevention with a pound of cure? So we would, do we not do the bone inspections? That's a big one. Our other treatments, this spring or June, there was a request for 60,000 to do a early pondweed treatment. So for the enjoyment of the, of the users over the summer, we think that given the amount of use on these lakes, that's a good investment on the behalf of the taxpayers themselves. So there's a lot of those things that we do really take into consideration. And we are constantly, all the staff knows, continuous process improvement is spoken here all the time. And I push that all the time. Like, how do we do things better or and get more results for either the same or less amount of money? So I mean, and fundamentally, that's just where we're at. Programs take the biggest chunk of our levy dollars. So, but we're not going to walk away from the statutory requirement of doing permitting. So a lot of our other areas, like I said, AIS, we can go through. We're planning next year to basically cut the monitoring back by roughly 90%, because we have a lot of baseline information. We feel that we could get by for some period of time without doing a lot of that. We'll just do some of the volunteer camp work and things like that. So other areas in terms of education outreach, we can't project exactly what we're gonna get, but one of the grants that we're looking to put in for is roughly $2.3 million. That would cover roughly 1.5 FTE. We're not gonna count our chickens before they hatch, but if that was to come through, that would take a lot of pressure off for next year's 2027 levy. So we're working, we've really increased the amount of staff time dedicated to doing grants. So we've made some adjustments internally and looking to simply throw the net out farther, so to speak, in terms of the possibility, moving more into foundations, other, things like that. So we still have been, again, highly successful in the grants. This summer, I was told by one of the Bowser staff people that they looked at, we comprise roughly 0.6% of the land area for the state of Minnesota, but the district here has received just over 6% of all the Clean Water Fund grants that's been allocated over the last 12-15 years since they started the program. So and that's producing that benefit, right? People can swim in Forest Lake and beaches and things like that, of that. Otherwise, if it was impaired and it was green, I know Manager Dave, you told us that, you know, after rainfalls, you could smell the manure in the
Did I tell
lake.
that one?
Yeah,
That's
so-
what got me involved. I grew up in northeast Montana, where you had to drive 70 miles to find water to fish. So I came out here and it was like
Yeah.
unbelievable, and then I started doing the samples for the watershed, and I went out one day, we'd had 2.5 inches of rain on Tuesday, 2.5 inches of rain on Thursday. I did the sample on Saturday, and one of the questions is, what does the water smell like? And I smelled it, I said, that smells like my farmyard back in Montana. Sure enough, you know, it wasn't intentional pollution. But there it was, manure washing all the way down into Moody Lake. And you can imagine how dangerous that is for our kids to swim that lake at that point. And we had to take one of the kids to urgent care because of that kind of a situation. But since that big project north of us, that has never happened again.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what happens when you do good projects and you have good programs, and those steady programs are really crucial to keeping the lakes clean. The rating for Comfort Lake on the boat launch program, we had about 20% of the boats coming in when that project started, like almost 15 years ago now. And the last report from 2024 is we had 4% coming in. 4% of the boats. So it's teaching, it's an education program too, teaching the boaters that if you're in a contaminated lake, to clean your boat, even if you're not, just get in the habit of cleaning everything. You know, don't take your bait with you if you've had it in the water. You know, not singularly, but I'm talking about, you know, the pouches and so on. Don't take it to another lake, and make sure your boat is cleaned on the ends, aside, on the outside, and then underneath. People forget the underneath part. And that's working. It's absolutely working. One of the good things that happens over time is you do see new things coming in, new grants coming in. And this year there are grants for, well, there have been for a couple of years now, but the last place sub-watershed to get the a carp out of your waters is the Comfort Lakes. And there's a new grant program that covers that. And so we will be applying for that as well. It's one of the few that's out there for carp removal. So that's a positive. It's really a positive. And it's like others, you know, we complained a lot about not covering the type of engineering that we do and the diagnostic work that we do for every project. And the reason we do that, first of all, we're mandated by state law to use science to pick projects. Well, this goes a bit beyond that and picks the best projects, as Mike's talked about and Steve's talked about. And there are grants now available to pay for that. We used to pay for that ourselves through the levy dollars because the grants wouldn't pay for those. Now that's being paid for, as it should have been all along, in our opinion, but at least they're there now. So that's gonna take a big burden off of the levy as well.
President Anderson?
Yes.
If I may comment.
Certainly.
Jerry and Ted and Randy, I do appreciate your comments, and I know you care deeply about the waters in this watershed district, as all of us do. But your comments are well taken, and will certainly be responsible as we move forward. At least I will. That's my voice to speak up, and the other board members know that.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
There is a hand raised on.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna let Emily take care of it.
Okay, Emily, can you introduce the person on?
Yep, I can ask Daniel to unmute. You should be
his
prompted
name.
to unmute.
Daniel, can you give your full name, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my video is locked out, but that's all right. Daniel Chut, 680 North Shore Drive. Just wondering, if with all the levies that, or I'm sorry, all the grants that you were mentioning are being applied for, is it possible to, that'll be replacing levy dollars? Is it possible to see which ones come in and are awarded, and then to stay the levy raise for now and see which grants get awarded and then revisit this afterward?
The timing doesn't always work, but I'm gonna have, Mike, you or Emily answer that question on timing.
Madam President, managers, so that certainly is possible. I guess it'd just be a matter of, I think, for the board as a whole, I think there's been more interest in making sure that we're covering our loans. Because we do, the challenge is that, as President Anderson noted, is the January 1 through the end of June timeframe, when we don't have, the revenue to cover, so. We don't want to be in, the end of May and not being able to pay our bills. I mean, we could in theory, get a short-term, I think, loan at some 10% interest or something from the bank, but that would be less than ideal to end up pursue that option. I think,
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, that you're done, go ahead.
I was just saying, you know, we could, I think, go back to the MPCA. And talk to them about some of this. I know President Anderson, and we actually have a meeting set up in the latter part of October with Bowser to see if we can't recoup, because it's been a long-standing frustration for me, but
For all of us.
yes, but that we have not, the district here, we've not been able to get our pre-planning work covered by grant dollars because we're using the sequential diagnostic monitoring approach. If we were using a lot of the other watershed entities, the watershed plans are all using computer models, and that gets funded by Bowser. So it's a really a true disadvantage, even though we've done presentations to them and such, that, hey, you're, you know, statistically 4 out of 5 projects that you're gonna do are not gonna provide the same yield as the ones that we're identifying and getting benefits from. And so we are decades ahead of others in terms of achieving water quality goals. So professionally, it's super frustrating, but as a taxpayer, it's even more frustrating because I know that we can statewide can do much better. So we're planning to approach them, and I've recently been in touch with some others at Bowser too about this topic, but we have one of the deputy directors coming to the district office to meet. So.
Good. So
Sure,
we
so
are
in my-
always,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just making sure I understood, right? So switching models would get paid for by the state better, but it's not as good of a model for monitoring and
Well, the one is, we do, so we use models, but we actually, the hallmark for the Cumberland Lake Forest Lake Watershed District has been going out and actually getting monitoring data and then sending it to the lab and using real data. Otherwise, models use, you know, just these very broad assumptions within all of them, if you've ever had the pleasure of using them. And so, and it's sort of one of the old jokes is garbage in, garbage out. So there's a lot of assumptions. And so we did a side-by-side study when I first started here. I wanted to validate what I was observing in the field over, you know, my prior 20 years of related work, and that was to have a sub-watershed analysis computer model done for the Bone Lake and Moody Lake drainage areas, and then we did their sub-watershed analysis through the diagnostic monitoring approach. So the computer model did not pick up a single project that we ended up doing through our diagnostic work. It just can't. It's just, those are so limited, they can't identify them. So,
Sure.
So that validated because they're not, there's a whole bunch of reasons why, but it's always been frustrating to us that the Bowser has just said, well, that's our policy. And sort of like, well, yeah, but you created the policy, so change the policy. So,
Right.
So now it's a matter of coming back and revisiting it and trying to see if we can't recoup it. And if nothing else, just try to get the Bowser, the board itself, to move away from this myopic approach to addressing water quality issues across the state.
and there is progress being made on that because, this is getting too deep in the woods for most of you, and I apologize, but there have been regional watersheds set up over the last 5 years, working on this project. And the point is they seem to be aggregated around the big, river systems that come out of Minnesota. It's very unique. There's 11 or 12 major river systems that go all directions out of Minnesota. And so those are being recognized as eventually being the overseers of all the grant dollars. So much is gonna come to each of those regional watersheds from the state. And then Bowser is not looking at every single piece of paper for a grant from all of the area in Minnesota. They're only gonna be looking at that region. And one of the improvements that I mentioned earlier is that this grant that's being formulated for these regional watershed areas do have now reimbursement for that engineering work that we've been paying for. So that's a big, big plus. The other underscoring thing of all of these grant programs, or most of them, I shouldn't say all, but most of them, is that it's a reimbursable system. So you have the money ready for that projects in your own bank accounts, ready for the project to go in case, you know, something happens and Bowser doesn't come through. Or you get so far into it and then Bowser can't give you the other money that was owed under the grant so that you can complete the project. So that's sort of been the mentality since the start of these grant programs. But we're starting to see some improvement in the approaches. So, but right now, they're basically all reimbursement based. So.
Awesome. And just last question, sorry to keep bothering you.
No.
Thank you, by the way. So if these new regional grant districts go through and it's retroactive, you know, things get through, budget is balanced, you know, things are looking good, retroactive pay for, you know, different things done. Would the board at all be open, like in the future, to, let's say, you know, raising levy 20% today, but then things are caught up and possibly bringing it back to whatever's just needed, like?
Yes, if those major things happen, that's actually been in the 10-year pictures that we've been looking at on various ways to attach the budget or attack the budget, is that neutrality that you get to when you have other sources coming in that used to be levy, have to have levy dollars. So yes. Yeah, and I don't know if you did those things out, but the ones we worked with the CPA on, they all had these 10-year pictures of what happens, and all of them, even the largest increase that I had been talking about earlier, would have calmed down in year 3 and then started going back down to 3% negative increases, which means that we're actually taking dollars off of the levy amount. So, and that happened pretty rapidly. So, and Steve's even does that as well, probably in year 5 after the.
No, for year 3, you can actually have a levy reduction.
Okay, good. So even this budget has that feature. So we're taxpayers too in Chisago County and Washington County. So we feel whatever pain you're perceiving as well. So there's a fast approach or there's a long-term approach to it. So we're taking the long. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
But to your point, I hope you remember that if we don't need money in the budget levy for something, it's not gonna be there in future years. If we ever replace it through grants, we're not gonna budget for that item.
That's huge. That's awesome, because a lot of organizations will just say, hey, bonus extra, we can do. Let's keep growing it. Let's keep making more projects. So cool. Thank you.
That's true.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but we're all in the same boat that you guys are in as far as taxes. But thanks for your question. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
No other raised hands online.
Thank you, Emily. Any other questions from the crowd here? Okay, well, thank you for coming. We're so excited. We have visitors.
One last comment before we get off this. I just want to thank Emily and Adam, and actually Brad was pitching in to help, and other staff that I can't name, but I'm sure a lot of people worked on this to find the best way to approach this and communicate it. So appreciate all the help they gave us.
Good, thank you. Okay, we're gonna continue on with our regular meeting. You're welcome to stay.
I think you're behind schedule. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Lead you down to Stella's.
Yeah.
I'll copy it.
Okay.
Oh, you're crackers.
Okay, next item, under new business, C, permit fee structure rule.
We are, number 6.
And President,
Oh, jeez, I really want to get out of here. All right, public open forum. Oh, I'm sorry.
Madam President, I think we need to close the hearing. Maybe
Oh,
council's gonna
okay.
advise you on that.
And I just have to make that statement.
Yep.
The public hearing on the budget is now closed. And we will proceed with our regular agenda. Starting on number 6, public open forum. Is there anyone who wants to address the board on a subject not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on. We'll close the public open forum. Let's say those words. Okay, moving on to number 7, advisory committee updates.
Good evening, President, managers. In the board pack, you'll see the notes from the September 16th Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. Unsurprisingly, a big topic of discussion was the budget. So we discussed that for the majority of the meeting. We had a lengthy watershed update as we had not met formally in the month of August. Then we had a small portion of our agenda dedicated to the wake boat discussion as the phase 2 results of the Healthy Waters Initiative were released. So we had some light discussion on that and a couple follow-up items for me as a staff member to keep the committee informed, but it was a productive meeting. And I think that some of the discussion from that meeting carried over to today. And then our next meeting will be Tuesday, October 14th.
Thank you for that update. I just want to make one comment. If you haven't looked at that video on the wake boat damage that can be caused in lakes, please click that link that's on that the letter and watch it. It's about 20 minutes, maybe tops. And it's a really good brief overview of what happens at various various size boats, but then also the real damage caused by the wake boat itself. And it's pretty startling. It's really pretty startling to see. I'll give you a hint. If you have a mixer at home and you're mixing something in the mixer, now keep that in mind because that's what it looks like.
Like margaritas, perhaps.
No, they look like chocolate martinis.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Theme going on here.
Well, you said Stella's first.
Hey, good food.
Oh, I see.
Is
Okay.
there a remediation effort for that? Is that, I mean, or is it just
I-
understanding?
Well, these were University of Minnesota style of surveys or studies, and they did one already that took like 3 years to do. This has taken about 2 years to do, and it's come out, and it's more of the thrust of the motor going down on the bottom of the lakes.
Sure.
The other two were the other type of thrust, the one going out sideways, laterally. So it's really fascinating to watch it, and the length of time that damage is still churning is about 40 minutes, is what I remember from the video. It's very important, honestly, for all of you to take a look at it.
And it can go down 20 feet.
Yes, that's exactly right, yeah.
So our shallow lakes are really in
Yeah.
20 feet for it to go down. Yeah, right.
Okay, well, thank you. New business. This is the one that we moved already, so I'm gonna skip that. B 2026 budget and levy adoption. Mike, would you like to lead that?
And President, so the board has for you a decision yet to be made in terms of the levy amount. The public notice had indicated a range And the board, of course, can yet this evening stay within that range or something else. So there's two resolutions that staff have prepared, reviewed by council. And if necessary, if there's a dollar amount that's alternate to either of those two, we can calculate and update the resolutions accordingly to get them signed.
President Anderson,
Yes,
given the fact that we cannot increase the levy rate, but we can decrease it, I would make the motion to adopt resolution B, adopting the 2026 budget and directing certification of the levy.
And what's the percent on that one, Dave?
I'm not sure.
23.7.
23.7.
that's the higher one.
Yes, the higher one.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you. So I'm gonna second that motion. Because I was gonna make it if somebody else didn't, so, thank you. Yes,
Measure back, could you maybe state the dollar amount so we?
Yes, I can. The dollar amount for resolution B is $2,233,828.
and I still second it. Any further discussion?
I have a question,
Yes,
and that would be, what's the effective difference between
about,
resolution A?
Yeah.
No, but the effective difference,
Mhm.
what are we doing differently with the dollars between proposal A and proposal B?
You're paying off the loan faster.
That's it. Otherwise, everything else is the same.
well, it helps because it's not the total amount.
No, not the total.
No, right,
Part
but
of
I just mean, there's no other difference in
Yeah.
FTEs or projects, it's just loan repayment.
And it's about 65,000.
66.
66, yeah, so it's not a, I mean, it's a number, but it's
Right.
not a huge
But
number.
every year we keep that, it's another 65, that we keep
Mhm.
keeping that number going for 3 years or whatever we wanna do. It's better than not having it, otherwise we have to increase our loan to 300,000.
Sure.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, president, managers, it would be also a matter that right now we have a financial net position, so. And our
You have a what?
net position financially in terms of like in terms of how much debt we're carrying versus how much.
Yep.
And so, I think President Anderson had talked about having enough reserves to hold us from January 1 through the end of June. So the dollar amount would be adequate if it was unused for, the loan repayment, it would go into the reserves, just held, then that could be used, all things, nothing else changed.
on the operational side.
Well, just to reduce next year's levy.
Yeah.
Percentage, so, but it would make sure that we would be carried forward. But again, we would have, I mean, right now, we know that we have a couple of grants coming in just as of yesterday, so there could be more of that, but again, this is, I'd say, a more conservative approach to make sure that we're not running into a situation where we need to go get a short-term loan, just to carry us through to the end of, well, beginning of July, I guess, is the pay or June bills.
Yeah, well, I think there can be a correction made to the way that those things were handled. That money, in my opinion, should have gone to the project area, not to the overhead levy. The general administration levy, but we did take it out of that reserve that's attached to that to pay those expenses for the preliminary work that we do on our projects. And I do think we talked to you obviously about that, but I've talked to a couple of CPAs that we've worked with in the past, over the past year, and they think that's the right thing to do as well. But it requires some bookkeeping that's beyond me. I can see the global stuff, but those specific entries and how to make them corrected for that, I think we can get that corrected. But anyway, it's net position at the end of the year. And it's showing was 1.2 last year, it's 1.9 this year million. And so it makes us not good candidates.
Negative.
Negative, yes, negative. So it makes us not good candidates for bonds or bank loans. So we have to do it ourselves. So I recommend that we do that for just the reasons that you were explaining, and I'm sure that was what Manager Baki was looking at. I certainly was too. Is that it's a small enough number, under 100,000, that let's save that as a cushion. Because we're really tight. And when we get into March, April, May of the next year, we're really, really tight. Okay, any other questions? No, okay, roll call, please.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Bachmann,
Aye.
Manager Takes,
Aye.
Manager Schottenmiller,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you, motion carries. Next is the permit fee structure rule revision.
Madam President, I'll introduce the topic and then Dr. Wilkinson will provide some more details later on. We do have a PowerPoint.
We do. You will be filling right now. Oh.
So as part of the 2026 budget considerations, due to board directive and administrator committee's direction, staff took a closer look at our programs in both expenses and revenue. And for permitting, it's really the main area we looked at was increasing our revenue. In the past, we've been accounting and tracking costs for consultant, engineering review, legal review, and inspection time. But we were missing some expenses that could be charged to the permittee. It's the district's position that all private development should be covered by the permittee. They should bear the cost. So we implemented new administrative tracking to ensure that review of submittals, permittee correspondence, follow-ups, and then paperwork associated with private permittees are now being charged to permittee. However, that is a time-consuming process, and to accurately capture all the expenses requires a lot of administration. Under the current structure, we receive a deposit from the permittee. Private permittees, public permits cannot be charged per statute. And then we either return any unused funds, or if there is a greater expense, we require the permittee to pay that. We are now looking at switching over to a flat rate fee system. This is the system used by the majority of watersheds in the state and all of our neighboring watersheds. So under that practice, permittees will provide us a fee. And then it would be non-refundable at the end. However, by statute, we are only allowed to charge actual costs to the permittee. So as part of our switch to a flat rate fee, we had to determine what the average cost per permit was. So staff worked with DOR and Dr. Wilkinson on coming up with that average cost. I should note the flat fees that we're proposing are the true average. So we would expect some permits actual costs to be below the fee amount and some permits to be above the fee costs. We have had outlier permits in the past for costs. So we would suggest including in the fee schedule an amount where we would recover engineering legal expenses above our fee amount. However, today the board is just voting on the rule revision. We have included a proposed fee schedule just for the public and board to consider. That fee schedule would be adopted after the rule revision. Any questions on that process before I turn it over to Ann on how we calculated those fees?
I have two questions. Maybe she'll answer them, so I'll hold them until I hear from you, but there were a couple of things that didn't make sense to me. Sure. Okay, go ahead.
Is there a slide you'd like?
That's the slide. Okay. And I apologize, there's more
It's okay.
animations than I anticipated for you. I thought I would be clicking through them, so a lot of clicking for you. Madam President and managers, I'm gonna be talking about the work that we did to come up with the proposed fee structure as Mike has introduced. And I also say that Carl Almir from our office and I worked on this. Carl is not here today, but he is kind of our resident expert on permit programs and has done rule revisions for several watershed districts. So if you have additional questions, I can bring it to him as well. And then Greg also helped review the process and is also here online if you have any questions for him as well. So I'll go over the methods that we use. So we reviewed fee structures from all of the metro watershed districts and watershed management organizations. We compared the permit fees from those watershed districts to Comfort Lake Forest Lake fees, and Comfort Lake Forest Lake fees are within the range assessed from those other watershed districts currently. I will say that there is a really wide range. And it's also difficult to make direct comparisons because the structures are all very different. However, we did look at things that are comparable and then also made some extrapolations to see where you are. We also reviewed the permit database, which includes permits from 2009 to 2025. And then we requested from district staff to estimate the efforts, hourly efforts, and then for those activities that are associated with certain permit trigger rules that are not currently being accounted for, and then added those into our calculations.
Sorry, and we are coming for.
Oh, yes, they are currently being accounted for. In the past, they had not been. Yeah, thank you. We used an average of those estimated hours, and then we used a blended rate amongst the permit staff to do those calculations. And we also compare. So essentially what we did was we compared the review cost, the projected effort to the fees that would be assessed under the current structure. And then that's what this database looks like. This is going to be a little bit of a table heavy presentation, but I just want to point out some of the conclusions that we saw. So essentially we looked at all the different types of permits and the associated rule triggers, the number of permits within those, the total fees assessed, the review costs from engineering, legal, and inspection. So those are the more documented, widely documented ones, and then the estimated staff cost provided by the district staff. And then we looked at which rules, and we looked at the estimated discrepancy amongst those. So as you can see, the boxes in red, the erosion control, the permits associated with the erosion control rule represented the most permits and also the most losses. Similarly, we saw that buffer rules correlated with some losses as well. Sorry, Tori.
Oh, sorry.
Got a little too fancy with this. And then permits that are triggering the stormwater rule associated with subdivisions actually appear to be the current fee structure would be over collecting for those. So we use that information to start an iterative process of assigning new fees to minimize the overall permit program losses and overcharges. So to get this number that's in this red box as close to zero as possible, right now it's at $856, which over the 336 permits in that database is only $2.50 over the permit. But you can also see from this presentation, from this table that you have the proposed permit balances on that last column that show that still some rules will have discrepancies of different magnitudes. But if you look at the entire permit program as a whole with all of those permits, we're trying to optimize that cost. So that is kind of our iterative process. And then we made some recommendations based on that. As Mike already said, we would recommend revising the permit fees from a refundable deposit structure to a non-refundable fee. This implementation is implemented in the other watershed districts in Washington County, Carnelian Marine and Rice Creek, also Valley Branch and others have similar structures. This captures the permit review. This will capture permit review expenses that should be paid by the permit applicant and are difficult to track per permit. So it will allow some those expenses to be recuperated by the applicant. And then this also not having to look at refunding will reduce staff administrative workload per permit. So we'll talk about the meat of the fee recommendations. So we recommend the following fee structures. These fees are still within the range of the permit fees assessed by other watershed districts. So we're not, we're still within that range, although it be very wide. We are suggesting, as I alluded to, a reduction in fees for the subdivision rule by $150 for that fee. And then there's also associated with that rule, a fee associated with per lot on a per lot basis for those subdivisions. And we're suggesting that be also reduced. For the other stormwater rule that encompasses multifamily homes or commercial developments, we have assessed that needs to be increased by $500. The erosion control rule across the board increased by $125. And then the buffer rule increased by $750. I will say that one's the highest, but it is well within the range of other watershed districts charging for that buffer rule. And since this watershed district has a lot of wetland resources, it seems appropriate as well as fitting in with our optimization evaluation. As Mike said, we also would like to include a clause applicable to all rules that if the district determines that the actual district engineering and legal review costs exceed a fee amount by $4,500, the applicant must reimburse that exceedance, so above that $450,000 before the permit will issue. This allows us to have some flexibility on permits that, and there are very few in the database, that have a exceeding charge for legal review and engineering for many different types of reasons, but that is the presentation from what we looked at. And obviously there's opportunity to change this in the future, but this is based on the current program.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Madam President, can I?
Certainly.
So the board would be considering to distribute the rule revision. It's not voting on the fee schedule at this time. And then Chuck, would there be a vote after the 45 days for public comment?
I'm sorry, did you ask, would there be a vote?
Would the board re-vote to accept the rule revision after the comment period?
Yes, well, the vote tonight is simply to publish a proposed rule for comment. And then during the 45 days, there will also be a public hearing as part of a board meeting. And at the close of the comment period, the board would vote on adopting the proposed rule, which could be either the published proposed rule, or the board could make adjustments based on comments and its discussion.
Okay. Any other questions? I have some. Um. Did you look at any of the cities that we deal with, like, and their fee structures? I know I found, the city of Forest Lakes. I was looking for something else, but I saw theirs. I just happened to swing over and look at it. Theirs seemed to be higher, much higher than what we're dealing with. And I'm wondering if you've ever looked at the city's fees to me, it just makes sense that if we have cohesiveness with what our fee structures are for, you know, these certain areas, sub areas of our watershed, there's not any confusion with the people that would have had to go. There wasn't watershed, they would go to the city and get the same fee. And the same would be true, you know, with Wyoming City and so on. And I would imagine there's some legal reason that we can't do that. Chuck will inform us soon, I'm sure. But if it is possible to do that, it makes sense to me that we would want to keep them equal with that local community where the permits are issued. And the other thing that didn't make sense to me is why we're using negative numbers now, areas where we're losing, and we're including that into our fee structure tabulation. I mean, to me, that's shifting burden on other people to make up for the ones that are not high enough. So that makes absolutely no sense to me, and I'm hoping that you can enlighten me on why it's that way, because it's not fair.
I totally understand. I'll answer the first question. We did not look at city fee structures, and maybe Chuck, there is a legal reason to do that, but we assess other watershed districts.
My concern with the other watershed districts is that most of them are led by people from the Soil and Water Conservation District backgrounds, especially the ones in Washington County. And so you get a whole different picture of looking at things from that perspective. And those people have told me that too. So, you know, it's not something I'm making up, but it is just a different way that they manage SWCD as opposed to a true watershed. So that causes me some concern. When we do this, I want to do it right, you know, and I don't want to have to come back in 3 months and say, oh, I don't even know. We're only looking at a 60, what is it, 60? How much is the improvement? $685 or something like that, very small. Oh, here, I put it up here, $856 improvement. That's
not the improvement. It would be a 60,000.
Okay, all right, so now I'm looking at table 3.
I'm sorry, it would actually be a $300,000 improvement.
Okay, so where's that? Where can I see?
So if you look at the table, the database results, the estimated staff cost, that's what we're trying to recuperate. And that's at the bottom there, the total is $300,514.
Where's the bottom? On what page? What table?
Yes, thank you. I don't have the
Table 1?
memo
Okay,
in
I
front
have
of
it
me,
here.
but I have it on the presentation.
Okay, so we have a $300,000 improvement. Net, yes, okay. See, I don't see that at all anywhere. And I'm looking at table 1.
Sure. If you look at table 1 and you see the estimated staff cost, it's the, let's see, the 5th column over.
Oh, here we go.
We're trying to recuperate that currently unrecuperated staff cost.
Yeah, I don't see it, but anyway, you can show me that later. If you say it's there, other managers have seen it, obviously, I'm just not catching it. The other one I had trouble with is this, and maybe it's just the way it's worded, but if the district determines that actual district engineering and legal review costs exceed the fee amount by $4,500, the applicant must reimburse that exceedance before the permit will be issued. Why don't we just say when it exceeds the fee amount? Why do we have a hard number here? Because it should be if they're over it.
I think maybe Chuck and Mike can talk about that
Okay,
a little bit more.
If we move to a flat rate fee, we would expect that some would be over and some would be under. Because we're doing the average of all permit costs. So at the end, the overages and unders should even out. We have the 4,500. The 4,500 overage to capture all outliers. We could track every permit as we're currently doing and then charge based on all expenses. We're just talking, 70 to 100 charges for each permit that we need to track, and it becomes difficult and we could miss out on money. Where the flat rate would ensure we're capturing the average across the board.
okay.
The cost of all that detail is worth. I mean, so it's just better to put a flat rate, you don't have to spend that time and effort keeping all those records.
Yeah, I just don't see why it would be so troublesome.
And the
If
way
you've
we
got
have,
bills from engineering.
the way we, Madam President, if we wanted to adjust the fee structure in the future. It would not be a rule revision.
Is that right? You can just change the fees without sending it to the public?
So what we're voting on now, or what staff is proposing, the board considers is moving to a flat rate.
Mhm.
So
No.
that,
No, I get all that. I get all that. What I'm talking about is just this exceedance of the fee.
that is,
Why would you do it at, it's $10 over, $20 over? Why not have something that
Because then you're back. to
captures
tracking-
everything?
Then
Pardon
you're, then you're back to having the staff track every cost.
You're gonna spend $150, you get $10. That's the problem, so just make it real simple.
Yeah, but not if you get invoices from the engineers and the legal fee that target those specific projects. So it's not that tough to do. It just seems more fair to me. Are we not gonna collect if it's under 4,500? Is that it?
Madam President.
Yeah.
If we did consider this, but then if we're collecting the overages, we would then have to be returning the underage as well.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to recoup all excess engineering and legal costs, we would then have to return.
Well, let's give that a try and see what happens, but it just doesn't make sense to me. And we can look at the city things later as well. Okay,
I missed, what is the overall savings of what we're, by doing this? In other words, we all looked at this, the engineers looked at it,
Mhm.
did a cost value study. What's the benefit to us by doing it this way compared to the way we've been doing it?
We're trying to recuperate $300,500 of unaccounted for staff,
Additional.
district staff time. Yeah.
Right.
Over the.
That's what we're gonna need by doing it this way.
Over the history of the permitting program, yes, not
not annual.
not annually, no.
Okay. No. Okay,
Madam President,
Ma-
one other piece is that by saving staff time and administrative time itself, that time can be reallocated to other activities. in
no,
the district.
I get that part.
So-
I get that part. But
That's one of the.
how long was your study period?
2009 to 2020.
Okay,
Chuck has his papers.
you haven't annualized that value. No, okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Holtman, I understand you have your hand raised.
Madam Chair, managers and Mike. I need to note, it appears that the red line proposed rule in front of you may not be the most up-to-date internal proposed rule. that we produced. I'll let Mike address that. But it's a fairly simple proposed rule change. One difference is that in the most recent version, the rule would not specify the $4,500 figure. It would leave that to be stated in the fee schedule that the board, as discussed, the board would adjust by resolution and not have to go back through formal rulemaking.
Okay.
Okay,
so there's opportunities for change, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and if the board generally favors going forward with a proposed rule to move toward this more fixed fee structure, given the disparity of what's in front of you versus, I think, what our internal draft is, you might just authorize staff to publish a proposed rule to move to a fixed fee schedule, which would leave us the ability to put out the final version of the proposed rule. If that
Why
makes
don't we
sense.
just add that? Why don't we just add that to the motion? A manager moves to publish the final version of the proposed rule and distribute the attached cover note, so forth. Does that make sense?
That would be fine, yes.
Now Greg has his inputs.
Greg?
Yeah, I was just gonna add one thing on the comment about the city fees. I don't really think those would be comparable. That, you know, the city is reviewing a whole host of things that the watershed is not reviewing, you know, street design, city lights, sanitary sewer, water main. It's really a different animal, and the district has actually intentionally tried to make their rules not overlap as much as possible. So they really are different reviews, and so I don't really think it wouldn't make sense or be necessary to have those fees be the same, I don't think.
Yeah, I was just talking about the basic things that are similar to ours, that's all, not all that other stuff. Okay, but I get it. I understand what you're saying, and it's clearer to me what you intend to do.
Okay.
So without any other comment, does someone want to make this motion, just adding the proposed final revised rule? All right, I will make the motion to publish and distribute the attached final proposed revised rule. Cover note and engineer's memorandum with tentative fee schedule, and allow at least 45 days for public comment. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Buckman.
Aye.
Manager Tace.
Aye.
Manager Shopmower.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. All right, it passes unanimously. D, Resident Shoreline Award Recognition.
President, managers, aid and need here is to go through this, or
Yeah. Good evening, Madam President, managers. In the board pack, you'll have a quick little info on Gene and John Trekus of Lake Keewatin, who were honored to receive the Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership's Natural Shoreline Award. So this was an award that the Lower St. Croix Partnership put on this year. Interestingly, they were not nominated by staff, not that they don't deserve it, but they were nominated by an outside entity, likely Washington Conservation District. Their shoreline was cost shared about a decade ago from a watershed grant. And then they've received a mini grant previously from us as well to kind of work on some of the upkeep. But we've used their shoreline a number of times on the various shoreline tours. We've featured their photos of their shoreline. They've been really great folks to work with. And so this is much deserved recognition of the hard work that they've put in. And I encourage you to take a moment to read the article that's included in the board packet.
Okay. Did you say that Washington District, Conservation District had something to do with this?
They were one of their staff nominated the Shrekus
Okay.
for
But it
Shrekus
was,
shoreline.
yeah, it was a Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership Award though, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, all right, very good, because that's what it says. Well, I think we should have a commendation letter sent from us as well, from the watershed. And if Mike can have someone prepare that letter, he and I can sign it. Because we should recognize it as a watershed, since they are residents and taxpayers here. That's very, very good.
Could we get it in the paper, an article about, what they did in the importance of natural shore, that's kind of a PR story for us. I mean, they'll probably publish it because they're from town.
I think, did Lower St. Croix do that already?
I suspect AMREP will draft one. I don't know, Aiden, if you've
Yeah.
been in contact with Barbara.
Okay.
Well,
I'll
we can
say
send-
I'm not familiar with what further outreach
Mhm.
MREP will be doing, but both Gene and John are planning on attending our State of the Watershed event. That may be a good moment to provide them with that letter of commendation.
Yeah, I think we should do that. And I think Lower St. Croix people will be there too. So they can stand up and say a few words too. Hopefully. All right, very good. Thank you. And good for them. It's a nice example. All right, the next item is State of the Watershed update.
The managers, Adam. Here is Adam. Thank you, Adam. He's present. This.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yep, Madam President, Board. Briefly, you had a memo in the board, in your board packet. We're on track, we're on schedule, we're on budget for the event. As of today, we have 114 people registered or RSVP'd. And then touching what Aiden said, I talked to Barbara at the Waterfest today, and we will be acknowledging Shrikeys at the State of the Watershed after our Watershed Champion Awards.
Perfect. Thank you. Should have known you would have been on that. Thank you. Yeah, it looks like everything's shaping up really nicely, and that's a good attendance record. What was our last one?
Last year we had 93 or 4 was the
Ooh,
RSVP.
yay. It's
So
growing.
we're ahead of it this year.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. And then one thing else that just struck my mind in this talking period of budgets. I asked you this once before, but we used to just send out notices to everybody and had, small gatherings, nothing quite like this. This was designed to be an annual thing, but for the 25th anniversary, the first one we'd had in a number of years. And I do like that, but somebody might ask about the budget, to mail out a mailed invitation to, I think we have 10,000 homes in our district boundaries, roughly around that area. Wouldn't that be more expensive than having this type of, yeah,
Yep, Madam President. So for this one, we just did electronic and email invites. If we did a invite to everybody in the district, bulk rate mailing, it would cost about probably $1.10, $1.20 per piece of mail to send that out.
okay, so roughly twice as much as this costs.
Correct. Rough
Good.
budget for this is 5,000.
For the announcement,
Pardon me?
just for the announcement.
Just for the announcement, that's correct. So remember that, because somebody might come up to you at this event and say, how much is this costing? Now we know. It's half the cost of doing our traditional mailing. Okay, good, thank you. That was it for me. Anybody else? Well, thanks for all your hard work. Looking forward to this event. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, just like last year was. All right. I've lost my budget. I've lost my agenda. Thank you. Thank you. Now, next is report of staff, administrator.
And president managers, first and foremost. I'd like to introduce formally to the board, Ben Jernberg. Business and operations manager, started a couple of weeks ago, and we look forward to him being more involved. Kind of throwing a lot of stuff at him, and it's been a recent transplant here to the area. Living in Forest Lake currently, and yeah, so if you haven't had a chance to stop by the office sometime and meet with them, feel free to do so. So
Yes, and he has a really prominent office too.
Very much so.
Yes, right when you walk in the door.
Absolutely, right in front. It was awesome.
I'll be honest, we did consider like having one of the, small closet spaces upstairs. I've been into those offices upstairs, you see what I mean? So,
Oh, we could use the tent outside.
right.
Not so good in the winter.
Right, but I did, after some thought, and you could maybe not thank me later, Brad, but, I thought you would be right in the heart of things right there being.
Close in the step alcove and they could put a door on it.
Right, yeah, so, but, yeah, so getting him out and about is, going through the materials and, obviously, not surprising, it's, been a quick study on a lot of things that we've been going through already, and I look forward to him helping, facilitate a lot of different, things that we've had questions on, making continuous, process improvements across the board. Always more things.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Before we move to this topic? We found out during the interview process that he's actually related to someone.
I am,
Here,
I'm
here.
first cousin.
Very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew David Baki is.
No.
Well,
Just so it's clear with the board, I was on the interview committee,
I was
and when
just
I
gonna-
saw
just gonna
Brad's
say that.
resume, I thought, wow.
yeah, yeah, and
So I had to step back.
he
which
did.
Yeah.
He absolutely did the right thing, and we appreciate that. He was on the interview committee, so,
And
yeah.
it was sometime after I was in the lead process when I started doing research on the board, and imagine my surprise. when I-
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Definitely picking up your tab Dallas.
Yes. Yeah, he can't pay for it, so you would have to. Good, all right, well, welcome, we're pleased
Thank
to
you
have
very
you on
much.
board, thank you.
And if you can, Madam President, you were present at the public meeting we had just on Monday night in the Schilling Park area over by Bixby. We had just a terrific turnout on the neighborhood there. The question of ours are flood resiliency, the impacts water has had. One of the most telling things looking through the plat was that 15 of those homes are the farthest place away from the home is actually wetland, surprise, and then there's a drainage, utility easement and another, probably thirds of, probably many of them, half to 2/3 of the properties are designated to be wet on a regular basis, but it was still good to hear their concerns and understand, but also communicate to them, what we're working on, is also just like why, things are. We offered them that with the grant program, and many people took information that were indicating that they were looking forward to trying to beautify the wetland that they do have, but the information was provided. It was, we were surprised at how good a turnout it was. I think there was like 25
Absolutely.
people. or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, there were, I think about
Kids.
10 at that meeting in February.
Great.
But yeah, it was impressive. And let me just finish with my comments on this and you can go on, but Adam, you were there and Blaine obviously was there as a head explainer of everything. But he said something that everybody that was there was so shocked at. And that is on their original plats, they have 2 easements. Off of their property as it goes out into the flat wetland area. There's a 50-foot DNR easement that should never be mowed or changed or altered without a permit discussion with the DNR. No one knew that, even the people that had been there for years and years. And then there's a 50% 50 foot easement also from the city. So there's 100 feet that should not be interrupted. And part of the rain catch, of course, and, yeah, so everybody was shocked at that, and that one thing was important enough to have that neighborhood meeting. And the fact that there were so many, was, as Mike said, surprising, but always, really welcomed. Adam, you and I talked after about too, about how successful, and can you share what you told me about your former experience with neighborhoods?
And just to recap, so we did have 24 people there. We sent out 15 letters, and then we also did door hangers, or went back and actually put hangers on those. And my experience is you go to where the people are. Small little get-togethers like that, people will turn out, and they certainly did for this one.
Yeah, anything that impacts them directly is going to draw the highest interest level. So that's something for us to consider going forward as we're doing even major projects. It affects neighborhoods, and probably differently in some of the floodplain areas too. So we need to think about that, because the turnout was just phenomenal. Yes, Mike?
At present, we have a number of projects done in the neighborhood meeting, but we've never had turnouts like that.
Yeah.
Where we've, reached out and
Mhm.
set up a tent and then a table. And if we get
Mhm.
2 or 3 households, that's been kind of tops.
Yeah.
For the years, so I was pleasantly surprised
Mhm.
at the turnout of this one.
Yeah, it was successful. Yeah, and yeah, we need to start thinking about how we can use that technique. Blaine did an excellent job. Adam, of course, always does an excellent job as well. And so it was, I encourage you to look at the packet that was put together. It was the right information and not too techy that people wouldn't read it. But the interest in their own properties, of course, is going to make it more interesting to them. So try to go online and look at the document that they put together. I'm sure it's online, online folder sometime. But you'd be proud to see that. All right. Anything else on that topic?
Did you want to mention the sword sands again?
Right, nothing more on that topic, but yes, so.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Highlight that, thank you, but. Yeah, I guess just reading through, I encourage the board again, to read through some of the other sections, a lot of good work that the staff has been doing, anywhere from the permitting side to the outreach. Operation and maintenance, things like that, continue with our land acquisition pieces. Yeah, and the big news was, just a hearing yesterday with a meeting, and the council. There's like 29 members, or I don't know how many members, 20 something on that council. And they have to agree on what they're proposing to put forth to the legislature, and there was some questions on the rebuild piece, but we were able to have a chance to address some of that, provide additional information, and that got the final support to go through. So yeah, very, very happy about that. And we also there was some other takeaways through that process that we've learned about how to address some of our future requests, and that will help us be equally successful as we have. So we're now 3 for 3 when it comes to submitting grants to the Sword Sands.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, Mike asked me to reach out to Chisago County commissioners and ask for a support letter. And so I sent it to the administrator. And he came back about a week later and asked for more information. My commissioner is not the president. They switched that. They have a rotating schedule for that. And so there's another ward that is their commissioner is the president. And he wanted complete details of, what we're doing and what the purpose is and all of that. And I asked Mike if we had anything like that put together, and we really don't. But whatever we put into the Sword Sands worked on a technical level. So I'm going to work with my commissioner and ask him to let us know what is actually needed for the board to give us that support letter. I think we got one from Washington County, right?
Correct, and right, so we actually had it was more about reaching out to the legislators to make sure they were informed.
Yeah.
So that, because ultimately, during the legislative session, they will have to vote to approve on the recommendations.
Yeah,
And as you know, as a public official, it's nice to have knowledge about the things that you're voting on, so.
yeah, and it's nice to have that support too.
Right.
Because it's not just one entity, it's all the neighborhood entities that are going to do that, so. We'll work on getting that set up for each county, maybe even our local members too. But nice job, Mike. What I saw was good. I couldn't get you up in the afternoon, but the morning session was good.
Yeah, the other staff, Aiden and Blaine took the afternoon work,
Okay,
one like South property, so.
alrighty, next is EOR.
Madam President, managers, we have a couple updates. We have the alum treatment on Forest Lake coming up the week of October 6th. I will also be giving a alum workshop similar to what I did in the spring next week on Thursday, October 2nd, to the public to talk more about alum treatments, water quality, lake science. So that'll be fresh on their minds when they see the barges out on the lake.
Yeah.
We also are making progress on Heath Avenue Iron Hand Sand Filter. We're in between 60 to 90% plans, and 60% plans have already been submitted to the city of Wyoming for review, and we're awaiting comments there.
What project is that?
The Heath Avenue.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. Okay.
And then we're finishing up our monitoring season, and it's been nice weather to continue to do that monitoring as needed, so we're happy about that as well.
Is that it? That's it. Thank you very much. Smith Partners.
Nothing, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. The law is constant. We like that. On a local level. I mean. All right, so what is next? Smith Partners said no. Report of treasurer.
Okay, this month we have income $45,871.37. Most of that is almost all permits, so not as high as we'd like to see, but it's money, right?
That's right.
And then the expenses for the month would be $221,172.92. And I guess we have interest of $6,093.87. The bank transfer will be $90,500. So I'd like to ask the board for a motion to accept the treasurer's report and to provide permission to pay the bills tomorrow.
And make the transfer.
And make the transfer. And what?
And make the transfer.
And make the transfer. Thank you.
I'll second. To speed things along.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Tate.
Aye.
Manager Schottenheimer.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Report of officers and managers. I'll start with you, Manager Baki.
Nothing to report, President Anderson.
Thank you. Manager Tate.
Same for me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You.
Nothing to report.
I could report, those spoils that were taken to get that load of manure up behind our barn across the road.
Yeah,
I've got the most fantastic garden I've had in my life. Absolutely
Bring the
unbelievable.
produce here.
and it's still growing, isn't it?
It is,
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good for you. A useful use
Yeah.
of a bad thing, right? Report, oh, excuse me, pardon me?
Report of managers still.
Okay, Steve,
Nothing to report.
and I have nothing. I'll save it for next time. Summary and approval of board direction.
Just one, Madam Chair, that staff will prepare a letter to the Shrek ISIS for your signature.
A commendation, a letter of commendation. Good. We have nothing else to talk about. It's
President
only
Anderson?
over. for 35 minutes. That's not bad.
If I may,
Yes, yes.
I just want to thank Steve and Mike for their nice presentation tonight regarding the budget. I think they did a really a great job of giving more than enough information to support where we stand on the budget at this point. in time.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's important that and it was kind of the first time we've told a story, in terms of value analysis and that, so it's something hopefully we can build on and begin to get that message out into the public too. But, cause we haven't done much of that in the past.
Well, we've done some, but not
Not a lot,
in this kind of detail, and there's more, obviously, there's
Yeah.
more years, so there's more history to talk about. But, yeah, I agree, I think it, made the point. It's not gonna satisfy everybody, they want the levy to be as low as possible, but that's just not possible when you're still building. Which we are, and, the interesting thing to me too is that no one wants to admit openly that there are different percentages depending upon the length of history and where you're at and so on, and what you're responsible for. And it does make a difference if they can start looking at that line item where it belongs, which is at the very bottom of the list of things that are on your tax statement. And so when you do a 20% increase, it's necessary because you're going into different projects within each sub-watershed. So of course, those budgets are gonna be different. But at some point, we're gonna level off here and we're gonna get these big climate things done, and that's gonna be done with grants. We've got now grants to fill in those things like we talked about that we were paying, which we should have been paying for. So it's all good from here on in, and yeah, so it helped that relationship with the work that we're doing and why is very important. I hope it helped you. You're the real gauge of that. Was it helpful for you?
It was a little bit drinking from a fire hose, Steve
Sure.
listing off a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
I'm sure not everybody followed that,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I mean, it was good, I think, as somebody new.
Mhm.
It's, what's done is done. What are we doing now?
Right.
And so I think it was good to talk about the need to pay back the loans. I think it's important to be clear on whether or not loan strategy is something we're gonna do going forward. It's unique that those were 0% loans, right? And they have some of, I thought they all were, no, some,
Well, the last few were 1.5.
okay.
And for 7 years, so that kind of, like Mike mentioned, that 4-star issue a little bit too.
Sure.
I didn't mention.
I know that there was something about the
Yeah.
deadlines that need to be,
Mhm.
we need to take care of, and so I think those are good things that, we didn't talk about that. I think that would be good to mention,
Mhm.
as far as we have no interest loans that come up, they're due by X, and we have to figure out a way to bridge that gap between now and.
Yeah. Well, I think you made the point though that, getting things done sooner rather than later is a good thing because it's never gonna be cheaper if you wait for the future. And we had an opportunity to accelerate some things, and we took that opportunity. Forest Lake is a big sub-watershed, and
Right.
so it required action, and we were trying to stave off hitting that mark, like you were talking about, on delisting it. That's not a good thing. And Forest Lake is an important asset for the city and draws 100 times more people than we get on Comfort.
Well, I know when I was looking at a place. We drove around and looked at different spots, and when we got up towards Green Lake. My wife said, "This is a nice lake," and I said, "Do you look at it?
Mhm.
It's covered with stuff. I'm not on that."
Mm.
And so if there's remediation that prevents that, I mean, it's
Where were you driving?
on 8,
On this,
just on 8 and.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, yeah, I think it's Green Lake up there.
well, it is, but it's much bigger than just that little section.
Okay,
And so you were kind of in the marsh area
okay.
on that.
Is
strip.
that in our district?
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Well,
So-
just that little.
No, I didn't.
Just,
I
I'm
didn't-
sorry, not Green
Okay.
Lake itself. but here, go.
Yeah, I didn't think so, cause I haven't heard the,
No, it's really
yeah,
close.
right, okay.
See Pine Lake up there? That actually goes both directions. It
Okay.
comes down here and some of it goes into Green. Green's right up there
Mhm.
above it where it says Little Comfort.
Yep,
That's all that water is there.
sure,
That's a huge lake though. It's bigger than Forest Lake,
well,
so. But anyway, so the whole part of, it's a nice lake once you get past that part.
okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful lake. Okay, well, anyway, we're just wasting time here. There are, yes.
Just couple things.
Mhm.
Wanted to note that there were a lot of other staff that helped with put all this together, of course, Emily and Brad and others, so we appreciate the work that they did in putting that together as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and we do have some documents that managers to scientists are here that we just printed off, so as far as certifications and things
Okay,
like that,
sure.
so we can
Sure.
get that done as well.
Or for Chris.
Oh, yes. A card we'd like the managers to sign if possible.
Oh, yes, for Chris, look.
And one final thing I did want to say during the budget presentation, but I think it's also important from a data standpoint, look back at the last 10 years. So the levy is headed at 2.6% or 2.6 fold increase, while the stock market has been 5.6. So, I mean, so from that perspective, you know, the market and so just values, home values, we can look at a lot of different metrics. But to think about the number, the amount of work and effort that's been done and leveraged by the district and still be underneath all of those other metrics. Oh, it's really a testament to the board and the staff that have been working with things.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, is that, people get twisted because of the bigger items on their tax statement. You know, but we don't impact that way, even if it's a 20% increase. It's just, you know, 1% on mine. You should go home and do your own, and then you can figure that. I added a inflation factor. So the future years past 2006.
It doesn't help when everybody else is doing increases though, then they,
Well, of course
then at the bottom of the line, then you look
But
at
it-
it, then you add it all up and go, wait a minute.
No, but the point is that we have unique projects to do though,
Sure.
with limited time before the climate goes to hell, and we're on our way, but, you know, we're staving it off as much as we can. But anyway, I think that whole thing did that, it was necessary. Some people probably, especially the ones that were involved before, you know, probably didn't want to listen to it, but the guy on the phone, the singular guy on the phone, he seemed to enjoy the information, so that's good. Nice job, appreciate it.
Not yet.
All
I make
right.
a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I
was
was
thinking
waiting.
that.
I said that 10 minutes ago. Are you seconding?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Manager Schmaltz,
Hi.
Manager Baki,
Hi.
Manager Taves,
Hi.
Manager Schottenmiller,
Hi.
President Anderson.
Certainly. And that's a yes. Adjourned, we're adjourned.